Okay, here's the translation of the provided text. I encountered a young and enthusiastic girl at a luxury goods store. Sis, the bag you're carrying is the same as mine. But I don't really know luxury bags, could I add you on WeChat and get some tips? I flatly refused. Instantly, her eyes welled up with tears. I couldn't resist her pitiful appearance, so I reluctantly agreed. After adding her on WeChat, her top post on her moments was, "Men, they can eat their fill at home and still nibble a little outside. But if they eat their fill outside, they might not be able to eat even a little at home." I shook my head and set her messages to Do Not Disturb. But that night, I discovered she had sent me dozens of WeChat messages. Sis, do you think these bags of mine are real? And is this the latest model? Looking at the 24 bags she sent, they were exactly the same as the ones in my bag cabinet. That latest model was a 3rd anniversary gift from Song Yi just for me. Mine is definitely real, and so are hers. Soon, another message popped up. My boyfriend gave me all these, do you think he loves me? My boyfriend said he gave a big sister a fake latest model bag, what do you think she'll think? 1. At that moment, I was lost in thought, staring at the messages from Serenity Shen. She was the girl I ran into yesterday at the luxury goods store. About 20 years old, a junior at Riverfront University. At the time, my best friend, Autumn, and I were together, picking out my 3rd anniversary gift. My husband, Song Yi, was supposed to come with me. But he had a last-minute business trip, so he told me to go ahead and pick something out. I had my eye on a New Year limited edition from D, costing just under 60 grand. The sales assistant was getting it for me. That's when Serenity approached. She exclaimed in surprise, which was how I noticed her. Not even 5'3", petite. High ponytail, baby face, light makeup, stepping in small heels. A very fresh, artsy girl. She had a smile on her face, her big eyes staring straight at me. A little puzzled, I asked, is there something I can help you with? She naturally moved closer. Sis, I just realized the bag you're carrying is the same as mine. But I don't really know luxury goods, could I add you on WeChat and get some tips? It's rude for a stranger to suddenly ask for your WeChat. I waved my hand. If you don't understand, search online. Jihu, Baidu, Little Red Book, Douyin know more than I do. Her eyes instantly turned red, her voice choked with sobs. Sis, I'm sorry, I was being presumptuous. I just wanted to ask you for some professional advice, I'm really sorry. Her posture was very low, tears welling up in her eyes, about to fall. Pitiful and heartbreaking. Maybe I was being too sensitive, maybe the little girl just wanted to learn something. And the bag she was carrying really was exactly the same as mine. It's worth mentioning that this niche bag isn't that expensive, but it's hard to buy. Song Yi had to run all over China to order mine. To run into someone with the same bag was something of fate. My heart softened, and I agreed. After adding her on WeChat, I glanced at her moments. The latest was a post from yesterday. Men, they can eat their fill at home and still nibble a little outside. But if they eat their fill outside, they might not be able to eat even a little at home. After a long string of ellipses, followed by, women are the same, hee hee, I really ate my fill today. I'm really talking about food, you naughty babies who are thinking dirty, go stand in the corner. The picture was of the recently popular revolving restaurant. $2,688 per person. To be honest, when I saw the first 2 sentences she posted, I did feel a little disdain. But after reading the rest, I thought that kids these days like to play with abstract concepts. I, being a 97 baby, might be a little behind their trends. After all, you can't think too badly of people. But I didn't want to talk to her too much, so I set her messages to Do Not Disturb. After choosing the bag, I was going to pay directly. But the sales associate looked embarrassed. Mrs. Su, this model is currently only available as the sample bag you tried on. We can order it from headquarters, but it won't arrive until tomorrow night, is that okay? I nodded. Song Yi would be back tomorrow night. He could come directly and buy it. Perfect timing. Anyway, it was his gift to me for our 3rd wedding anniversary. And now, Song Yi's message arrived as scheduled. Honey, I got the bag, be back in half an hour. Below his WeChat message was Serenity's. Even though I had set it to Do Not Disturb, I could still clearly see the latest message. Sis, do you think these bags of mine are real? My curiosity piqued, I still opened the chat box. There were 24 bags in total in the chat box. Some were cheap canvas bags, like the 69 yuan one. I had one in my bag cabinet as well. That was a gift from Song Yi for our anniversary when we were penniless in college. Back then, we were very poor, having come to the Pearl City from a small town, with all our tuition being student loans. We relied entirely on part-time tutoring to cover living expenses. That 69 yuan canvas bag was a collaboration model. It was very popular on campus at the time. I liked it a lot, but I didn't think it was worth 69 yuan. Songy secretly bought it for me when he found out. Back then, part-time tutoring paid 15 yuan an hour. A meal for us cost 3 yuan. That canvas bag was the luxury item he gave me. I continued to scroll through the photos Serenity sent. There was a small CK worth over 500 yuan, that was Songy's birthday gift to me after graduation. There were also classic D models worth tens of thousands, a wedding gift. Hundreds of thousands, a pregnancy gift. 200,000, a miscarriage compensation. Each one was very meaningful to me. But the value of those items was far less than that simple canvas bag. Now, looking at these photos, even I, in my naivete, guessed what she meant. My body trembled uncontrollably. My fingernails dug into my palms, the clear pain barely keeping me calm. Sis, these should all be real, right? I trust my boyfriend. And this one, do you think it's the real latest model? New messages popped up one after another. The latest photo was of the bag I had my eye on yesterday morning. Hers was real. My boyfriend gave me all these, do you think he loves me? My boyfriend said he gave a big sister a fake latest model bag, what do you think she'll think? Oh, if you ask me, how could a big sister deserve the latest model bag? Of course, a new bag for a new woman. What do you say? Sis. Faced with her provocation, I only felt cold. All the blood in my body had long since congealed. Songy and I went from school uniforms to wedding dresses, dating for 4 years, married for 3. We built our company from scratch together, bringing it to the point of going public. At the company, I was his right-hand woman, able to stand alone on many occasions. At home, I was his gentle harbor. Yesterday, before his business trip, he snuggled in my arms and pouted. Orange, I definitely wouldn't have gotten to where I am today without you. I love you the most in this lifetime. So, I was just the most loved. Besides the most loved, there was the second most loved, the generally loved. Tears dripped onto the phone. Aunt Wang, the nanny, voice sounded outside the door. Sir is back. 2. For a brief 10 seconds. I thought of all the possible responses. If Songy really cheated, then I would surely make him regret it. I dried the tears on my face and touched up my makeup. I put on a gentle smile and left the bedroom. Songy rushed forward and picked me up, spinning me around 3 times. Honey, I missed you so much. Really? I asked, my probing gaze meeting his. Why are your eyes red? And your voice is a little hoarse. Did you miss me so much you cried? His tenderness and humor were as usual. I took a deep breath, returning to my usual tone. I was just looking at photos from before we got married and accidentally started crying. He affectionately stroked my head. You're still so sentimental. I used to enjoy this gesture, feeling that this was love passing between us. Now, I was disgusted beyond compare. I inconspicuously dodged away and sat down at the dining table. It's late, let's eat together. Today was our 3rd wedding anniversary. Auntie made a table full of Sichuan cuisine. Songy and I both loved spicy food. But today, he sat at the dining table, reluctant to pick up his chopsticks. What's wrong? Did you eat your fill outside? I asked. He touched his nose, his tone nonchalant. I can't hide anything from you, can I, honey? After the meeting today, Director Zhao insisted on treating me to a meal. I said I had a date with you today, but he said to just eat a little and continue when I got home. But you know how Director Zhao is, and I ended up eating too much. I had Director Zhao's wife on WeChat. Soon, a message was sent. But the reply I received was exactly the same as what Songy said. My mind was racing. Suspicion and trust were fighting a crazed battle, tearing me to shreds. I picked up a spicy shrimp and placed it on his plate. Have one, you know Aunt Wang's cooking, you used to love it. He put on disposable gloves, and his slender fingers expertly peeled the shrimp. Then he neatly placed the shrimp on my plate. I mechanically ate 2 bites, tasting like sawdust. But the moment I swallowed, I felt my stomach churning. I rushed to the bathroom and threw up. Songy handed me water to rinse my mouth while gently patting my back, looking worried. Honey, could it be? I subconsciously denied it. No, my stomach isn't feeling well today, I've already seen a doctor. Before I knew the truth, I wouldn't let us have a child. Back at the dining table, Aunt Wang had already brought out some warm stomach porridge. I drank a few mouthfuls in a hurry. The dinner to celebrate our 3rd anniversary came to an end. Songy pushed the bag in front of me. Honey, happy 3rd anniversary. Also presented was a bouquet of my favorite gardenias. I should have been happy. But everything happening now was eerily consistent with Serenity's words. Trembling, I opened the gift box and took out the bag. I looked at it over and over again. It was real. I breathed a sigh of relief. Perhaps the boyfriend Serenity was talking about wasn't Songy. Soon, her message arrived again. Sis, why haven't you replied? Did you go check up on bro? You don't believe him, do you? Hee hee. I know you don't believe me either. But I also received gardenias today, they're very pretty. Sis has such good taste, I like everything you like. The white gardenias in the photo were covered with water droplets. The elegant lace bow was exactly the same as mine. Serenity's messages began to bombard me. Sis, I know you believe bro more. Even though bro and I have only known each other for 10 months, which can't compare to your 10 years of acquaintance. But, bro told me, we're soulmates. It's funny, I actually forgot what soulmate meant, I had to look it up to find out it means soulmate. So-called soulmate, sis, do you know what it means? My mentality was gradually reaching the point of collapse. My mind was leaning towards believing Song-yi, because we had known each other for 10 years. We were from the same small town, we knew each other inside and out. But the words Serenity said were like needles, densely piercing my heart. Honey, what are you looking at? So engrossed? Perhaps seeing me looking at my phone, Song-yi leaned over. Having just taken a shower, his hair was dripping with water. His sticky voice teased the nerves around my ears, making me even more tense. Song-yi, are you hiding something from me? 3. Song-yi was stunned for a moment. Then he glanced at my phone on the bed. He exploded immediately. That psycho Serenity, right? She actually bullied you, good thing I had a backup plan. He called his assistant, Zach Zhang. Zach had been with him for 3 years and was meticulous in his work. Soon, my phone received a video and voice message. Mrs. Su, Director Song and I came back from a business trip today and were tricked into Serenity's apartment by the intern, Serenity Shin. She threatened to kill herself, forcing Director Song to stay for dinner. Director Song pretended to cooperate in order to stabilize her emotions. Afterward, we called the police, and I recorded the whole process. The video was half an hour long. Song-yi explained to me one by one while watching the video. That Serenity is an intern in the design department who was hired last year and has been working for almost a year. I originally had no contact with her, but 3 months ago, I needed a promotional poster, and the design department was too busy, so the design director assigned this very simple task to Serenity. But Serenity did such a poor job, I had to teach her how to modify it place by place to save time. That was our only interaction. Then today, she suddenly called, saying that a thief had broken into her house. Thinking about protecting the employee, Zach and I went to take a look and called the police at the same time. As a result, when we got to her house, she made a table full of dishes, said it was a misunderstanding, and insisted on me staying for dinner. Thinking that we couldn't falsely report a crime, Zach canceled the police report. We were about to leave, but unexpectedly, she picked up a knife and slashed her wrist, saying that she had cooked the meal specifically for me and that I had to eat it. In that situation, I could only pick up the bowl of porridge on the table and frantically drink it, trying to appease her, while Zach found an opportunity to call the police. Finally, we managed to get away, and after she was reprimanded by the police, the matter was over. He let out a long sigh. We must have been cursed for 8 lifetimes to have hired such a crazy person. I pointed to the bags in the chat history. What's all this about? Song-yi frowned, opened his phone, and handed it to me. Look. Before my eyes were his chat logs with Serenity. The time was last Friday night. Serenity, Director Song, do you have any bag recommendations? The company's annual meeting is coming up soon, and I want to buy a bag to make an impression, but I don't know anything about them. Can you teach me? Song-yi, I don't know, search online. Other than work, don't send me messages in private. Serenity. I'm sorry, Director Song, I was being presumptuous. I come from the countryside and haven't seen the world, I'm really sorry. Long-winded apologies took up most of the screen. Standing next to me, Song-yi explained. After reading her apology letter, my head was buzzing. I was wondering if I had been too harsh and if she really just wanted me to recommend some bags. So later, I sent her your bag cabinet and told her to look at it herself and buy whatever she wanted. As for whether the bags she sent you are hers or not, I don't know, they could be AI generated, or she could have stolen the pictures online. And as for today's bag and gardenias, I really don't know what's going on, she might be stalking me. Song-yi looked sincere. All the details lined up. I couldn't find any flaws. Moreover, I had also been deceived by Serenity's pitiful appearance. Song-yi was also kind at heart. All of this made sense. Then fire her. I replied. Okay. He said, arching his neck towards mine. Wife, has the crisis been averted? Shouldn't you compensate me? I pushed him away and touched my stomach, complaining, I'm not feeling well today. His eyes lit up. Are we having a baby? I took out the prepared gift box from the bedside table. It was a pregnancy test with 2 lines. If Serenity hadn't suddenly interfered, the surprise would almost have turned into a scare. Song-yi hugged me, his palm gently placed on my lower abdomen. I shuddered to think, if a problem had inexplicably arisen between us because of that Serenity, I would have hated her to death. No, I'm going to have HR fire her tomorrow. I smoothed out his furrowed brows with my fingers. Okay, don't get involved with people like that. He wrapped his arms around my waist. Wife, now that you're pregnant, I'll take care of the branch office. I don't want you to be too tired. I shook my head. I'm not that delicate. Let's just keep everything as usual. I thought Serenity was just an interlude in our otherwise ordinary lives, and that she and I would never cross paths again. Unexpectedly, a month later, I ran into Serenity again at the coffee shop outside the company. 4. My and Song-yi's company had just expanded this year. I was in charge of the branch office in the suburbs. Song-yi handled all the business of the head office. I only came occasionally. Unexpectedly, today I ran into Serenity, who should have been fired a month ago. She seemed to be waiting for me specifically. She picked up a cup of coffee and sat across from me. Sis, can you guess why I haven't quit yet? She asked the question that was in my mind. Serenity, what are you doing? Song-yi's roar interrupted our conversation and quickly made Serenity's eyes turn red. Large tears fell into the coffee, messing up the original perfect latte art. Song-yi stood in front of me protectively. Serenity, if you have a problem, come at me. He seemed very afraid of Serenity doing something to me. Serenity poured the coffee all over herself, her voice choked. Director Song, I won't hurt anyone, I'll only hurt myself. Then she walked away in her high heels. I was stunned and didn't recover from my confusion. Serenity was really crazy. After she left, Song-yi looked me over carefully. Wife, are you okay? I shook my head. Why didn't you fire her? The hand he was using to straighten my clothes paused slightly. Oh, that little girl is also quite pitiful. If she loses this job, she'll be forced by her parents to marry an old bachelor. She finally managed to get out of the mountains. If I fire her, wouldn't I be driving her to her death? I rubbed my temples. Song-yi, I understand her situation, because we both came out of the mountains step by step. We can help people who are in the same predicament as us, but only if their values are normal. She provoked me again and again. Do you think she's a normal person? Kindness without boundaries will sooner or later backfire. Song-yi's brow furrowed even more tightly, his tone suddenly rising a few notches. She just wants a chance to live. Don't you think such vitality is valuable? Su Cheng, how come I didn't realize you were so cold-blooded before? I felt like I didn't recognize the person in front of me. I looked directly into his eyes, wanting to understand what he was thinking at that moment. Why was he so fierce towards Serenity at first, but then spoke up for her after she left? His behavior was very strange. Song-yi seemed to realize that he had said something wrong and quickly changed his tone. Orange, that's not what I meant. I mean, she's sick, you shouldn't provoke her. But from beginning to end, I had never looked for Serenity once, never replied to her messages. Was I provoking her? From what point on did Song-yi's values shift for Serenity? To the point where he couldn't even tell right from wrong. Disappointment accumulated in my heart little by little. This meeting, which was supposed to be a discussion of the direction of the branch office's development, also broke up unhappily due to Serenity's sudden appearance. 5. I told my best friend, Autumn, about this. Autumn scolded Song-yi 300 times in anger. After calming down, she said to me, Su Cheng, I've encountered a certain type of bastard before. When they meet a girl who has the same problems as their lover, they'll try to make up for what they owe their lover by doing it for this girl. I smiled bitterly, but I'm not dead yet, am I? Why can't he just make it up to me? Autumn gently hugged me. That's the reason why scum men cheat, they try to put a plausible reason on their cheating. But I don't have any evidence. Will I be misunderstanding him? I was still not giving up, asking a very foolish question. Autumn replied very gently, Orange, I know it's hard for you to accept this fact right now, just like it was for me back then. Right now, you just ask yourself, can you accept Song-yi's behavior? If you can, then this marriage can still continue. If you can't accept it, then grab all the resources you can and give him a surprise. I thought about it for a long time, tears falling silently. I suddenly thought of a question I saw on Jihu when I was 20 years old. Which is more disgusting, physical cheating or emotional cheating? At the time, I angrily replied, is there a difference between dark green and light green in a cuckold situation? To put it bluntly, it's all eating shit. Which one is more disgusting? Then I'll ask you, which is more disgusting, picking it up and eating it directly with your hand or putting it on a plate and eating it? If you can ask this question, it means you love them so much, lock them up, respect them, and give your blessings. When I had more experience years later, being in the same situation as the person who asked the question, this answer formed a closed loop. 7 years ago, the bullet I casually fired, unable to tolerate a single grain of sand in my eye, pierced through the long love affair between Song-yi and me, and now, it was hitting me right between the eyebrows. I stayed at Autumn's house for one night. The next day, I went to work at the branch office as usual. After work, I made an appointment with a top female lawyer in the Pearl City. 6. By the time I got home, it was 11 p.m. Songy sat upright on the sofa, as if he had been waiting for me for a long time. There was a Hololand cake box on the table. There was plenty of mango on top. He hugged my waist. Wife, I was wrong yesterday, I apologize to you, don't be angry with me, okay? The baby will be unhappy if mommy is angry. I stared at the mangoes on the box. Songy, I'm allergic to mangoes, you know that. A hint of panic flashed across his fawning face. Ah, I'm sorry, wife, there was only one last cake left today, and I forgot in my hurry. He threw the cake directly into the trash can. I'll buy you a new one tomorrow. At the same time, my Weibo received a private message. Sis, is the mango cake I picked out delicious? The accompanying picture was of intertwined fingers. One of the hands was wearing our wedding ring. I took a deep breath and decisively replied, delicious. Then I took her WeChat out of the blacklist. 7. I investigated Serenity. She was Songyi's direct junior at the university. 8 years younger than him. Just 20 years old this year. Their first meeting was at a campus recruitment fair at Riverfront University. As a well-known alumnus and recruiting company, Songyi was invited by the college teacher to give a special lecture. At the time, I was busy preparing for the opening of the branch office and didn't attend. Throughout the lecture, Serenity kept asking questions. After it was over, she followed up and asked, Senior Song, can I intern at your company? Songyi said decisively, of course you can. After a moment, he added, if the company has internship needs. Serenity's face quickly turned red. The whole place erupted in inexplicable screams and cheers. After that, Serenity successfully passed the company's recruitment process and became an intern in the design department. I suddenly remembered that during that time, Songyi said to me, the new intern in the design department is very hardworking, just like you were back then. I didn't care at the time. That's great, let her stay after graduation. Looking back now, perhaps at that time, he had developed different feelings for her. Serenity's family background was also really tragic. She was the second child in the family. She had a much-loved older sister and a younger brother who was the darling of the whole family. After the college entrance examination, her parents forced her to marry someone. In the end, she ran away and went to college on her own. It was originally a very inspiring story. So inspiring that the opening of her story was exactly the same as mine. Songyi and I were high school classmates. In the first year of high school, not long after I registered, my mother dragged me to the school gate in front of all the teachers and students. She received a bride price of 30,000 yuan and forced me to go back and get married. Fortunately, the police station was right across from the school, and I cried for help. The police uncle stopped her, gave her legal education, and my mother had to leave sheepishly. I turned around and was surrounded by the discussions of my classmates. At the age of 16, my dignity was crushed on the ground by my own mother and blown away by the September wind. I felt a sharp pain in my knee, and I noticed that my pants had been worn through in several places during the dragging. Fresh blood stained the blue jeans, leaving behind clumps of shadows like black holes. I was scrutinized by countless eyes. It was supposed to be high summer, but I was covered in cold sweat. I usually kept to myself and had no friends. I could only try to shrink into a corner and reduce my presence. It was then that Songyi took off his oversized school uniform and Shinsha tied it around my waist. Student Su, work hard, let's get out of these mountains together and move towards our own future. My original name was Supundi. He didn't call me by my full name, giving me, a sensitive and self-deprecating 16-year-old, a little bit of dignity. People who lack love always cherish hard-won kindness. After that day, we became good friends. He was number 1 in the grade. I was number 2 in the grade. Later, I learned that Songyi's parents had divorced long ago. They each formed new families, leaving him and his elderly grandfather to live together. We were like two abandoned hedgehogs, growing hard armor under the heavy blows of reality. But we accompanied each other, huddling together for warmth. After the college entrance examination, he asked me, Student Su, do you want to continue huddling together for warmth until we can become family? His confession was very novel. It was the first time I heard someone confessing their love in order to huddle together for warmth. But the word family really made me yearn for it. Songyi and I both longed to have a home. A warm home without scheming, arguing, scolding, or beating. So, we got together. We went to university in Pearl City together. He studied computer science, which had good prospects. I studied finance. In our junior year, we seized the opportunity of the internet boom, and he and his roommates developed a game together. It was a very simple decompression game. But it became a hit after its release. They formed a company, and I was the company's accountant. Now 4 years have passed. Songyi and I were married and were about to welcome our child. The company was about to go public. We were no longer the abandoned, helpless teenagers we were at 16 or 17. But at 28 years old, we had everything. The man who once asked me, "Do you want to become family?" had a wandering heart. I picked up the small cake from the trash can. I held the cream, now a mess, to Song Yi's mouth. "I can't eat it, but you can." He frowned, reluctant to open his mouth. I knew he found it dirty. But, who's to blame for that? He destroyed all of this with his own hands. After a moment of stalemate, he asked, "Su Cheng, if I eat it, will you forgive me?" Ed. He stiffly opened his mouth and swallowed it forcefully. Watching him finish the entire cake, I smiled and said, "You don't have to buy a new one tomorrow." He immediately wrapped his arms around my waist, calling out "wife" again and again. I suppressed the disgust in my heart, maintaining a calm facade. I accepted Song Yi's show of goodwill. But that didn't mean I forgave him. We had known each other for 10 years and loved each other for 7. Now we were like intertwined vines. To completely separate would cost us a price of cutting flesh from bone. I needed time to let go. Even more, I needed time to take everything he had. 8. I went for my prenatal checkup as usual. Song Yi would accompany me every time. But our relationship had become delicate. He outwardly protected Serenity in action, but inwardly tried to distance himself from her in thought. For example, Serenity had indeed been fired, but he had arranged a new job for her. Working as a store manager in a cake shop. A shop that Song Yi had invested in opening. His favoritism towards her had reached the point of being blatant. But what was amazing was that Song Yi actually took the initiative to tell me about this. Orange, I fired Serenity, but I felt sorry for her, so I let her work as a waitress at a bakery under our company. "You're so kind and understanding, you shouldn't mind, right?" He held me up high, testing me again and again. "Really just a waitress?" Seeing my suspicion, he immediately raised his hand and swore. Really just a waitress, and I really just felt sorry for her. I just treated her like a little sister and helped her out. I continued to press, "Like a little sister? You really don't know how she feels about you." Song Yi loosened his tie, coughing lightly, as if suppressing his emotions. "Su Cheng, have you noticed that you're like a powder keg whenever the topic of Serenity comes up? You're a famous university graduate, you've received higher education, so you naturally know that who you like is your own business. Who she likes is her freedom. We can't deprive her of the freedom to like someone just because she likes me, right? Besides, she's still young and immature, she's just blindly worshipping and respecting me. Once she meets a man she likes, she'll know that what she feels for me is just admiration." I sneered. "Admiration, how disgusting." Seeing me silent, he asked me in return. "Su Cheng, have you ever admired me?" "Never, right?" So-called admiration is to put the other person in a high and lofty position. But Song Yi and I had always been evenly matched. I had never obeyed or depended on him. Because I knew that we only had each other. If one person fell, the other would soon collapse as well. So, I rarely showed a vulnerable side in front of him. Now, he was starting to look for something in others that I didn't have. His questions seemed to instantly scatter the time that had trapped me. We had finally gone from being deeply in love when we were young to being sick of looking at each other. After the prenatal checkup, Song Yi dumped me on the road and drove back to the company without looking back. I could guess the reason for the change in his attitude before and after. Because I was pregnant. He thought I would tolerate his tests time and time again because of the child. So, from the beginning, he threw out evidence to prove his innocence. To now, he blatantly favored Serenity and accused me. He thought I was kind and indecisive. But he didn't know, freed from the shackles of emotion, I was more decisive than him. 10 minutes later, Autumn found me. She asked cautiously, "This child?" Actually, I had planned to have an abortion many times. But every time, I would inexplicably feel reluctant, and then be swallowed up by a huge sense of guilt. I seemed to be controlled by the embryo in my belly. But I knew that this child couldn't be kept. I shook my head, not keeping it, but they have to pay some price. 9. I opened Weibo and replied to Serenity's private message. "Sister, I know your youth is your capital. But our child is already 4 months old. And the bro you're talking about is my child's father." Then I contacted Zach Wei, the company's partner and vice president. "Have you ever thought about being the CEO?" Then Autumn drove me to Serenity's cake shop. 10. As soon as I entered the door, Serenity went into battle mode. She raised her proud head, looking at me with her chin. "The one who is not loved is the mistress. Tell me, does bro love you more now, or love me more?" I touched my stomach and said to Autumn, "I'm a little hungry, help me pick out a bread, it has to be sugar-free." Autumn hesitated. I patted her hand, signaling her to rest assured. After Autumn walked away, Serenity immediately approached me. "Don't think you can tie bro down with a child, I'll have one sooner or later too." I approached her ear, saying without a trace. As long as the child in my belly is there, your bro will always be my husband, the father of my child. And you are a mistress who can never see the light of day, a rat in the gutter, a rotting, stinking dead cockroach. Her face became more and more distorted. Finally, she pushed me hard in a frenzy. Go to hell. I fell heavily to the ground. Soon, a demonic blood flower bloomed around me. Su Cheng. Rushing towards me with autumn was Song Yi. In a daze, I seemed to see an 18-year-old Song Yi running towards me. He asked, Su Cheng, are you willing to become my family? Now, the 28-year-old Su Cheng replied, I don't. 11. When I woke up in the hospital, my abdomen had returned to its flatness. Song Yi was sitting by the bed, his eyes bloodshot. Wife, I really want to kill that Serenity, she's a maniac. I told you she was sick, you shouldn't have gone to the cake shop to provoke her. It's okay, baby, we'll have another one. His 3 sentences were like acting in a play. The first sentence played the role of a grieving father who had lost his child. The second sentence played the role of an incompetent husband who blamed his wife. The third sentence made me unable to help but laugh. Song Yi, what makes you think we'll have another child? But as I laughed, my tears fell. Song Yi, have you forgotten how many children this is for us? He was stunned for a moment, then trembled and choked up. I haven't forgotten, this is our 3rd child. Yes, Song Yi and I had 2 children before. The first child was not long after we got married, when the company was just starting out. Neither of us had parents to help, and the funds weren't much, so we couldn't afford the child. At the time, Song Yi knelt in front of me and swore, Su Cheng, wait for me, I will definitely give you and our child a happy life. 2 years later, everything was on the right track. I also became pregnant smoothly. However, on the road, he and his opponent were furiously racing to get revenge on a competitor for snatching a project. I was sitting in the passenger seat at the time. In the end, he won. But I lost the child. I was constantly being thrown around in the car. That time, he cried and knelt in front of me, saying sorry while slapping himself in the face. And I had to endure the physical and mental torment of the miscarriage, and also comfort his unstable emotions. At that time, I thought that love could overcome all obstacles. I didn't feel wronged at all. But only a year had passed, and I had already seen many times the look of him not loving me. And our 3rd child also officially put an end to our marriage. This was his retribution, but it was my salvation. I should be thankful that when I finally recognized him, no child had to accept the suffering we created. I only hope that they can return to heaven and find parents who truly love their children. After a long silence, the hospital room door was suddenly knocked on. It was Autumn and Lawyer Zhao. Lawyer Zhao handed me an agreement. I took a look and handed it to Song Yi. Let's get divorced. 12. He looked at me in disbelief. Su Cheng, are you crazy? The company is about to go public, and you're proposing a divorce now. I was one of the company's partners, with only 10% of the shares. Besides me, there were 3 other partners. CEO Song Yi, 35% of shares. Vice President Zhak Wei, 30% of shares. Vice President Cassie Cheng, 25% of shares. Now that I was going to divorce him, he would definitely have a sense of crisis. Seeing that my attitude was firm, he softened his tone. Orange, we've loved each other for 10 years, it's not that easy to separate. If you're just throwing a tantrum because of Serenity, I can swear to God, I definitely didn't do anything inappropriate with her, we really just treat each other like siblings, I just helped her a few times because I felt sorry for her. If you don't believe me, I'll have her resign from the bakery right away. I shook my head. Sure enough, when it came to interests, men could abandon anyone. Oh, right, I forgot to tell you, Serenity has been criminally detained for intentional injury. If you want to bail her out, you have to hurry. I looked directly into Song Yi's eyes, observing the wonderful changes in expression on his face. His brow furrowed even tighter. Su Cheng, why are you always targeting her? She's just a child, can't you let her go? I was laughed by his words, targeting her? Song Yi, have you forgotten who killed our child? An unborn child is just an embryo. After saying this sentence, Song Yi himself was stunned. I slapped him hard and pushed the divorce agreement in front of him. Song Yi, sign it. His reason gradually returned. After carefully looking at the agreement, he asked me. Su Cheng, I won't get a divorce. I took off the wedding ring on my hand and spun it in my palm. Give me another 5% of the shares. His fists gradually clenched, impossible. I knew what he was worried about. The shares in my hand, whether given to Zhak Wei or Cassie Cheng, would shake Song Yi's position as president. Song Yi, I can only give you 1%. Me, 4%. Song Yi, 2%. Me, 3%. After a series of negotiations, he agreed to give me 2.5% of the shares, as well as all our marital property. I took back the divorce agreement and agreed not to hold Serenity accountable. I turned around and handed him the share transfer agreement. He looked at me in disbelief. Su Cheng, when did you learn to scheme? I continued to fondle the wedding ring. When you and Serenity joined forces to play me, why didn't you say you were scheming? After signing, he stormed away. I sent all the information about Song Yi's affair to Vice President Zach Wei. Director Wei, I'm counting on you for the rest. I wish you become the president soon. Zach Wei replied, happy to cooperate. But I turned around and found Cassie Cheng. 13. Cassie Cheng was the company's tech whiz. Many of the company's software developments were led by her. But Song Yi and Zach Wei were wary of her everywhere. They were afraid of Cassie Cheng, afraid of her taking control. So, as a partner, she contributed the most, but got the fewest shares. She looked at me in surprise. Su Cheng, you and Song Yi are husband and wife, how could you think of cooperating with me? I smiled and said, not for long. She still didn't believe me. I took out a document. Actually, the demo for that little game that the company originally developed was made by you, right? Cassie Cheng was stunned for a moment. I continued, Song Yi and Zach Wei took your source code and just added some embellishments to make it what it is now. And you, because you didn't have the funds, had to reluctantly give up and be forced to partner with them. Right? Their software development abilities are far inferior to yours. Even to say that the company is supported entirely by you, don't you want to take back everything that is yours? Cassie Cheng closed her eyes and sighed deeply. I want to, but I don't have the resources, I don't have the connections. I patted her shoulder, I have them. After a moment, we tightly grasped right hands and said in unison, happy to cooperate. Half a month later, Zach Wei began to cause trouble in the company. The news of Song Yi's affair spread in the company, and even some partners suspended cooperation because of it. Zach Wei's faction and Song Yi's faction were fighting fiercely. Many large orders were lost in their struggles. Cassie Cheng and I mediated from the middle, reducing the losses. In the end, Cassie Cheng became the company's largest shareholder with 37.5% of the shares. She sat firmly in the chair of the CEO's office. After that, Cassie Cheng and Zach Wei cooperated to kick Song Yi out of the game. And I, after transferring my shares, got 80 million. There are no eternal enemies, only eternal interests. After sobering up, Song Yi looked at me in disbelief. Follow the public account. Hubba sure, Su Cheng, when did you hook up with her? I'm your husband, we're family. Actually, Song Yi was most afraid of me defecting to Zach Wei. He never took Cassie Cheng to heart. He guarded against Zach Wei with all his might, but he didn't expect me to pull a fast one on him. I sneered, family? Song Yi, don't insult the word family. Don't think I don't know, you bailed Serenity out and hid her in a villa in the suburbs. Now, I'll fulfill you, and see if she'll continue to love you when you have nothing. Song Yi's hands hung limply by his side. Su Cheng, have you ever really loved me? You're calm and self-possessed. Being with me was also the result of weighing the pros and cons. So, have you ever really loved me? I answered seriously, also answering the 18-year-old Song Yi. I loved you, so very much. The love in my eyes has always been evenly matched, on equal footing. You're good, and I'm not bad either, we'll be better together. I cherish your efforts, and I'll repay you twice as much, so when you chose to start a business, I stood behind you without hesitation. When we were successful, I could choose to give up my own rights to pave the way for you. All of this is based on love. But what about you, Song Yi? You crave the worship and admiration of your partner. You want to turn me into a daughter, only able to depend on you. Perhaps you didn't like Serenity at first, but when you found out that she could be your daughter, you still couldn't help but waver, right? No. Song Yi's eyes were full of panic. Su Cheng, I just used Serenity to make you feel threatened, to give you a sense of crisis. I sneered, stop pretending, Song Yi, you acted so deeply affectionate that you believed it yourself. Actually, you knew I was pregnant a long time ago, Serenity was an accident, you wanted to use her to force me to soften, and then make me willingly offer up the shares in my hand and become your daughter. Too bad, I'm not a daughter, and I won't become one. Exposed by me, Song Yi completely collapsed on the ground. He murmured, it's not like this. I got up and turned my back to him. Either get a divorce directly, or divorce through litigation, I don't mind going to court. We've loved each other for 10 years, don't make me hate you. 14. A month later, Song Yi and I successfully obtained our divorce certificate. The moment I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I blocked all of Song Yi's contact information. He said in a low voice, do you really have to be so heartless? I put on a distant smile, I never liked messy relationships. Since you chose Serenity, then I wish you, no, peace, ever. In the distance, Cassie Cheng, who had been waiting early, gave me a bouquet of sunflowers, happy divorce. Also, Orange, don't you really consider continuing to be my CFO? I shook my head, your temple is too small to accommodate a Buddha like me. I'm going to be a Wall Street investment banking MD in the future. Cassie Chang hugged me, then I'll wait for your good news. I patted her shoulder. When will you completely take the company into your hands? I'll personally pull an investment for you. Cassie Chang said, wait for my good news. After separating, I came to Riverfront University and found the president. I had promised Song Yi that I wouldn't hold Serenity accountable. But they had no morals. Why should they expect me to have morals? As a well-known alumnus, and the president of the student union when I was in school, most of the school teachers knew me. The president thought I was here for recruitment matters, and politely invited me to the meeting room. I sent the president evidence of Serenity and Song Yi's affair. The president said with a serious face, Student Su Chang, we will definitely give you justice. Then, I continued to visit Serenity's class teacher and counselor, and her parents, and the community director of her hometown. I complained over and over again. I submitted evidence over and over again. Some people may ask, does this count as malicious dissemination? Is it illegal? I just showed the evidence to those who questioned me. What dissemination is it to get what you asked for? Finally, I released a video of my 10 years of love with Song Yi, and the reason for the messy ending, on all my social platforms. Soon, someone dug out the identity information of the two. Overwhelming abuse came at them. This is what they deserved. 15. A month later, I boarded a plane to the United States. Once, I was the top student in the finance department. My dream was to become a Wall Street investment banking MD. Later, because of love, I shelved my dream and worked as an insignificant accountant in a technology company. Now, it's not too late to rekindle my dream. I applied to Yale University's finance doctorate program. Looking at the clouds outside the plane window, I took a long breath. I admit that I will be loved. And I'm not afraid of being betrayed. As long as you become strong, the whole world will be willing to become your vassal. Su Chang, from this moment on, live for yourself as much as you want. Extra, Song Yi's perspective. 1. I love Su Chang very much. But I feel that her love is not worthy of me. She can change light bulbs, repair toilets, and even change tires herself. She never relies on me. She will reasonably and logically analyze the company's future development direction with me, and point out the mistakes in my decisions. She never worships me. This makes me very uncomfortable. Friends told me, behind every successful man, there is a fangirl. She will blindly chase after him, admire him, and praise him. But Su Chang would never do this. She went against the grain, taking a share in the company I founded. Even more and more people supported her. Some people said, in terms of management ability, Su Chang is no worse than Song Yi. Some people even told me that Su Chang could completely independently manage the branch. I don't want a lover like this. I only want an obedient daughter, who can praise me in 360 degrees when I get home. So, I made Su Chang pregnant. 2. Serenity was completely an accident. I never thought of cheating. It's just that her worship of me came like a tide. I hate such gold-digging women. I'm also not interested in wallowing in her. So, when she invited me to her house, I kept the evidence. What I didn't expect was that the always calm Su Chang was not calm because of Serenity. She suspected me of cheating. Her voice trembled when she questioned me. I know she can't live without me. And Serenity was just the sharp weapon I used to beat her. So, I deliberately didn't fire Serenity. After she knew, she just sulked. Then, I knew she was allergic to mangoes, but I still sent her a mango cake. She still chose to forgive me. She accepted every test. Then, I abandoned her after her prenatal checkup. The child was already more than 4 months old. What else could she do? And Serenity was also very cooperative. One bro after another, and the uncontrollable worship gradually made me lose my way. I arranged for Serenity to work in the cake shop. It's no problem to support a useless person like her. Besides, I succeeded in starting a business and my assets exceeded 100 million. What's wrong with raising a little bird to relieve boredom? Men, don't they all make mistakes when they have money? It's just that I didn't expect Serenity to cause Su Chang to have a miscarriage. This was my and Su Chang's third child. The previous love was real. It's fake to say I'm not sad. I thought if I coaxed her, we would have another child soon. It's just that I didn't expect Su Chang to want to divorce me. We had loved each other for 10 years, why did she easily propose a divorce? 3. If we didn't divorce, Su Chang and I would be one. The shares in our hands would give me absolute power and control in the company. But once we separated, if she defected to Zach Wei, then my position would be unstable. So, I used a little bit of shares and marital property to keep her. We had loved each other for 10 years, and women were emotional animals. Give them a little money and love, and you can easily control them. Before long, Su Chang would obediently turn back. After all, she had no relatives other than me. Her biological parents were still waiting for the Su Pundi to suck their blood and help their younger brother. She won't leave me. The so-called divorce was just a trick to beg for my attention. I bailed Serenity out. Su Cheng was too naive, thinking that an embryo could put someone in jail. But according to the law, one of the standards for being sentenced to imprisonment is causing minor injuries or above. She just fell to the ground, at most it was a minor injury. Serenity could still obediently be my daughter. It was a win-win situation. 4. Vice President Zach Wei began to spread rumors about my affair in the company. He messed up the projects under my command, causing dissatisfaction among the board of directors. Some people even wanted to kick me out. How could that be possible? I fought him to the death. What I didn't expect was that Su Cheng actually joined forces with Cassie Cheng. She was so cruel. She didn't even care about the 10 years of love. They kicked me out of the game. In the end, I had nothing. Oh no, I still had Serenity, this daughter. 5. Serenity was expelled from Riverfront University. She broke off relations with her parents. Friends avoided her. She could only cling to me. When I was most decadent, she said, "Bro, you will definitely make a comeback. Your company used to be so big, it's all thanks to you. They took it away for nothing, they can only destroy themselves. You will definitely be able to make better games and create bigger companies. I believe in you." The certainty in her eyes made me instantly feel that I definitely could. After forming the latest team, I started working day and night. But I gradually discovered that Serenity was not a qualified daughter. 6. She began to boss me around. She said the new office location should be in Area B, which was close to home. She said the secretary I hired shouldn't be too pretty. She said. What was her basis? She had neither Su Cheng's talent nor Su Cheng's wisdom, so why was she bossing me around? Then I'll use a child to shut her mouth up. Soon, she was pregnant. I suddenly thought of the child between me and Su Cheng, who was killed by her. Then, she should atone for our unborn child. So, she accidentally rolled down the stairs, her first child was gone. The second child was still gone. The third child was still gone. I grabbed her chin hard. "You can't even protect a child, what use are you?" Serenity cried and begged me to let her go. But if I let her go, what would I do with my anger that I couldn't vent? Afterwards, Serenity begged me for a divorce. I sneered. "You were the one who seduced me first. Have you forgotten that when I hadn't divorced, you stood in front of me naked, confidently saying it's easy for a woman to pursue a man, there's just a thin layer of gauze between them? Don't worry, Serenity, I will never divorce you. For the rest of your life, you will always be Mrs. Song." After a storm, I turned on the TV. I made a bucket of instant noodles. The TV was playing the Financial Channel. There was a live interview with Su Cheng, a rising star investor on Wall Street. Who was it? I rushed to the screen in disbelief. The knocked-over instant noodles spilled all over the floor, and oil stains splashed everywhere. At this moment, Su Cheng, wearing a white suit, was radiant and sharing her investment experience. Then the screen switched to the Nasdaq bell-ringing scene. In the video, Su Cheng and Cassie Cheng put their hands together and rang the bell hard. ZE Technology was officially listed. And Su Cheng was the company's largest investor. I pointed at the screen and laughed madly at Serenity. Do you see that? That's the company I didn't want. In the future, I will create even better companies. You just wait to enjoy the good life. She cowered in the corner, tears falling silently. An hour later, I sent an email to Su Cheng's work email. "I have a very good project here, I'll give you a chance to invest." 10 seconds later, the mailbox received an automatic reply. "The other party has refused your email.